Hello, welcome back to the Blue North. I had a lot of success with my first video, so I thought I would share another video, just me basically ranting about the state of affairs politically in the United States and in Canada. Um, but today I'd like to talk a little bit more about the upcoming 2020 election. The mainstream media is who I want to pick on today. The mainstream media seems to be getting worse. And when I say that, I mean the way that they report on the state of affairs concerning Republican and Democrat, or even in Canada here, the Conservatives get a different handling than what the Liberals and the NDP party do. They almost are more happy with the Bloc Québécois in Canada as a separatist party gets a better, more favorable coverage than what the Conservative Party does. And I can sum this up. Well, we had an event in my hometown, and the media came out to it, and they recorded the entire evening, and not a blurb was said anywhere in any media outlet about our MP, Member of Parliament, visiting our hometown for a fundraiser. So the media has to get back to reporting truths. That's what I think. They have to get back to reporting actual truths, not CNN truths, not MSNBC truths, not CBC truths. We have to get back to the honest truth. And I think that there has to be a better safeguard put in place, because Denzel Washington said it best when he said that if you watch the news, you're misinformed. If you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. And it's the honest truth. It is the honest truth. So moving forward, I'd like to see some sort of laws put into place. Now, if Justin Trudeau here in Canada can legislate what we say by way of pronouns and the use of language regarding people wanting to be gender fluid, if we are legislating for the first time in history what people can actually say, then we can legislate what the media says. So if you can infringe on somebody's freedom of expression, you can infringe on the misinformation that is being fed to the masses by the way of mainstream media. So I think that there needs to be more of a like a governance, even if it's a body that governs what the media says, what they cover, how they cover it, the truth. There's got to be definitely more said and done by way of the reporters that are just out there putting out whatever kind of content they want and hoping that they don't get caught. Now on CNN, we've seen Don Lemon, and he's had different colleagues on, and at one point they were making fun of Trump supporters. They couldn't find Ukraine on a map if there was a picture of a U and a crane beside it, and laughing and going right into the putting down, using accents that would be representation of Southern Americans, Southern states in the United States. And really, we have to get away from, and I don't know how we ever got to, because they're not journalists, but how we ever got to a point in our life where the media feels it's okay to do such acts and antics live, representing a party, that they don't like a party so bad that they would go on there and make fun of somebody. And really they would even go so far as to assume that someone has a lower IQ based on where they live in the country and how they speak. So we've really lost our way. And I think that there needs to be a governing body that is put in place that could be made up of both sides, both parties, but they need to be made up of somebody that's not going to fall into where we are right now, because we are getting the absolute worst coverage of media ever. When you're going to the White House and you're asking such brutal questions as Kung Flu. Now, this woman went to the White House and she's really thought that she has outsmarted everybody in the world. And she was going to ask President Trump about one of his administration using the term Kung Flu to express his version of what the coronavirus is. And she was really trying to make it into something, and she was really hoping that it would catch fire and that this particular comment would be something that has a black eye, a lasting effect on Donald Trump's campaign and his administration. Now, if you're at the White House during a pandemic, is this the question that you want to ask? Well, it is if you're trying to distract. So she went one further and went outside, and she decided that she was going to take Kellyanne Conway to task on this same question. And this is where um, the true questions and the fake questions get separated. So she tackles Kellyanne Conway with the same question, and Kellyanne says, "Okay, well, here's the mic. You just come on up and tell us who this was. Who in our administration would say such awful and vile things? You come up, rat them out, don't protect them." And of course, she couldn't do it, and she wouldn't do it, and there was nobody to rat out. So then they decided that they were going to do their other attack, which is basically a personal attack when they have no answer. So the Democrats are famous for this, and the left-leaning media are famous for this. If they're starting a wildfire and they're trying to start something, and there's really no grounds and no proof, and there's no data to back it, once they run out of things that when they tackle it with somebody that has the facts, right? So you come into contact with a conservative, and they debunk your theory by actually using facts and theory and knowledge and stuff like that. Stuff that the Democrats aren't really famous for using. They use feelings and anyway, so Kellyanne Conway asked this lady, this reporter, to come on up. This is day 2 of using this kung flu, and we want to know who it is. We really want to oust this person, and we want to get to reprimanding them like they should be if they're going to use such terminology. And she couldn't do it. And then when they didn't get what they wanted, they turned on her and they said, "Well, it's because your administration doesn't have any respect for Asians," and da 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 da. So what ended up happening was Kellyanne Conway was the perfect person to ask this question to, because she's married to an Asian American and her children are half Asian American. So there is a very good likelihood that she likes Asians. So it was an interesting moment. It was much like when there was call-ins to I believe it was Fox News, when the woman ran out of things that she could say, and she was based on feelings, and she was up against a conservative man who was using facts and numbers and stuff like that. And she went, when she was out of attacks, she went personal, and she said that you can say that because you use white privilege. And the guy said, "Well, I hate to tell you, I'm a black man." So this is what we're seeing. It's still there. It's still present in today's media. There's reporters going to the White House during a pandemic with made up crap that they're trying to pass as actual um, questions to the president. Just a waste of time. Then you have the the mainstream media all kind of gathered around her. They were all supporting her and propping her up, which I guess in a way is kind of good to see that they do stick together a little bit. But there needs to get to be a point where there's a governing body or something in place that is going to, almost like a three strikes you're out sort of deal. The CNN should definitely be held much more responsible for what they say and air. MSNBC as well. When Rachel Maddow was saying that the Comfort and the Mercy were never going to make it on time, it was on purpose to misinform the American people and to really strike at the heart of the fear that's going out among the people, the uncertainty and the fear. She was trying to fan that fire, and it was unnecessary. It was unfounded. It was untrue. And here she is passing this off as actual facts, actual news, sitting at her desk and saying how these things they're never going to be there when the president said, and just undermining his authority, undermining his credibility, and really undermining the honest truth, much like she did with the taxes and much like MSNBC does with everything, right? So when you think back about the dishonesty, you think about what could they have done that you can mention. Well, when Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, when they had their run in, the MSNBC and CNN doctored the video so that there was no scarring on the back of Mr. Zimmerman's head when they said that there was some damage there from Trayvon attacking him. Clearly, there was. There was very evident. There was lots of damage to the back of his head, and they also listed him as a white male, which is he's Hispanic, but then they wanted to make him out into a racist. I believe at the time his wife and girlfriend, whatever, was a black woman. So there's just a complete farce going on. When you look at Nick Sandman standing on the Capitol, wearing a "Make America Great" hat again, and he's made out to be the bad guy, the fall guy, the guy that's acting inappropriate. When you see Nathan Phillips, the native protester, well known to people in the protesting world, when he walks up to this child, and it really shame on him, because you're a grown man looking to pass on your own beliefs and or whatever. You're there to protest, and you get in this child's face and you put your drum right beside his face. Not only are you looking for a reaction that you didn't get, thankfully, but you were acting in a very inappropriate way. And of course, the media had the full video of this, and they really went after Nick Sandman to make him look the like the evil part in this video. And it cost them, because they ended up settling out of court. They were suing for $250 million, but in the end, the story that they were hoping to make money on actually cost them money. So we have numerous examples of the mainstream media just absolutely um, changing the truth, not even knowing what the word truth really is, and passing this off to voters constantly as misinformation. Now, Joe Biden running in the 2020 election, he hasn't even picked a running mate. But if you go on a lot of the news outlets, they already have him ahead of Donald Trump in polls. Well, polls are ridiculous, because they're obviously going to poll certain groups, and they will in turn show different things. And statistically, you can change polls and really twist that. And of course, then they portray that to the people as Donald Trump's losing already to Joe Biden. So get out there and support Joe Biden. So these are games, these are tactics that we see that the media uses, but there shouldn't be any. There shouldn't be any favoritism to any party. There shouldn't be any favoritism towards any particular politician. So I think we have to get somewhere. Like um, back in the day, when I first started being interested in politics was when Ronald Reagan was um, when the assassination attempt happened on Ronald Reagan. And I started really getting interested in politics. And just a younger guy, I pick up the paper and, just more or less mimicking my father reading the paper. But it really caught me by surprise to have this man that I respected just out of the fact that he was the president of the United States. And I seen the little snapshots across the top of the newspaper like a little film, and it showcased him waving and being, progressing towards the car. And then, of course, when the shots rang out, and he was injured and he was put in the car, and everything else, and how close it was to having a fifth president of the United States assassinated. So I started at a young age being really interested in politics, and I remember the media giving Ronald Reagan a hard time, and they definitely portrayed him as a doofus, as somebody that had lost his mind. And so the jelly bean skits on Saturday Night Live, and the what have you. And here's a man that won a war without even a bullet being fired. He defeated the Russians in the Cold War without even firing a shot. They tore down the Berlin Wall. So if he's pretty slow and all he did all day was want to count jelly beans, he must have pulled out a few magic jelly beans to get something done. But then Ford, when you look back at Chevy Chase's portrayal of Gerald Ford being a clumsy oaf. So it's not just the mainstream media; it's Hollywood backing the the Democrat side, and really you can't get work if you're a big supporter of the Conservative Party, or the Republicans in the United States, and it's a sad, really sad state. You're never going to fix Hollywood because that's a bunch of people that, quite frankly, they're not running on the same moral cloth that the rest of us are. So they have their own guidelines, and they were all about Bernie, or they were all about Harvey Weinstein, until it actually came out that Harvey did all these things. But they all knew Harvey did all these things. They were all very aware of it, but they decided that they were going to turn a blind eye to it. And really, quite frankly, they all own a part of that because they just looked the other way. They were too cowardly to do anything about it. So the mainstream media, definitely, you can govern that a lot better than you can a group of people's voices or opinions. So I definitely think there needs to get to a point where we actually put together a governing body that will definitely give the American people, the Canadian people, a better insight into what's going on, and the actual truth surrounding each issue and what's actually going on. It's not just opinion pieces that we're being fed. We're being spoon fed these opinions of different reporters. At one point at CNN, Don Lemon actually called a spade when one of the reporters and his cameraman went out into the field, and they were at a Hillary rally. I don't know if you can really call it a Hillary rally. There was a handful of people there, and nobody was really willing to say anything. So the reporter ended up uh, interviewing, sorry, his own cameraman, and his cameraman was going crazy about Hillary losing and how Hillary was the best, and how Trump shouldn't have won. And if this is what's going on, this is what we're being spoon fed by one of the major news outlets in America, CNN. Is it was they resorted to bringing in their own cameraman. And I guess I can understand that, because nobody would really want to go on after Hillary lost, and everybody started coming out of the woodwork saying, well, she wasn't believable, and she wasn't this, and she wasn't that. But when you get really down to it, the mainstream media, using their own camera man as the only person that would say their narrative, they couldn't get people in the street to say their narrative. So they had to use their own people, because they're so poised at selling their own brand, the Democrats, that they couldn't handle the fact that they couldn't find somebody willing to say enough harsh things, or the things that the cameraman was willing to say about the getting away from the electoral college. So this is where we are. This is the state we're in, and it's sad. I think that we have to do something about it, because it has really reached a boiling point. It has really reached a point where, quite frankly, if we don't do something now, I'm afraid where it's going to go. The the conservatives deserve as much coverage, right coverage, as the Republicans, or sorry, as the Democrats. And in Canada, really, the liberals are the darling of the CBC, and the reason they are, because they offer them more money every time there's an election. So the CBC is paid well over $1 billion of taxpayer money every year, and that has to change as well, because when you can influence the voice of a news outlet, you by giving donations and whatnot, there's something wrong. So we have to get to a better method of having these news outlets give out the news, and we have to have a body that governs what they say and holds them to account. And if they don't have reporters that are reporting the truth or making it up, then there should be three strikes and you're out, and you lose your privileges. Now, there's opinion pieces. They'll always have opinion pieces, and they should be allowed their opinion pieces, and that's fine. These are called editorials, or columns, or whatever. And at the end, you can have Rex Murphy ranting about how you know, this, that, or the other. It's his opinion, but not during the news, not during the coverage of a story that people are going to watch and get their information from. This has to start being the truth, the honest truth. And if that's not going to happen, then we have to have something put in place, because they're not going to do it on their own. So I'm going to stay with this. I'm going to see if I can't bring this up with some of my local members of parliament and my local member of provincial parliament here in Canada. I'm also going to bring it up when I work with the Republicans on the American side. And I'm going to try and get this voiced. I'm going to send out emails. There has to be a governing body. There has to be a better way of getting the actual truth to the Americans and to Canadians, so that we're more informed when we go to those polls. We have to be able to be voting on things that are actually happening, or the actual truth surrounding each scenario. So I'm going to stick with that. I will do more podcasts on that. So stay tuned for more podcasts on the Blue North.